Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good
Good
morning,
morning, ma'am.
Deepika. Good morning, Riddhi. Morning, Zaino. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. All right. So, yes, the topic for this webinar is international mindedness. And before we start, I would like to have a little bit of input from you as students of an IB curriculum, that is an international baccalaureate curriculum. I want you to tell me what is your understanding of international mindedness.
Well, my understanding is that we should accept everyone as they are, and we should think not only locally but also globally.
Okay, so can you give me an example for that? How do you think globally? Anyone? Rati, would you like to add something to it? Prerita, would you like to add something?
Yes, ma'am. Like international mindedness, according to me, means to like accept others' ideas and opinions and respect their opinions and fruitful to make a fruitful.
It's like knowing about all the different cultures and like being like accepting them and not being biased or prejudiced.
Okay, so to put it simply, international mindedness means understanding, respecting, and valuing different cultures, embracing diversity, and knowing that different perspectives have a great deal to offer, right? So when we say, I know about the culture, but how much do I accept others' cultures? How much do I value the importance of different cultures, different people, different beliefs on in this world? The best example that anyone could have ever thought of international mindedness or being aware of what international mindedness is or global awareness is the pandemic. This is what this pandemic has taught us. I don't know whether it was a boon or a bane, but due to easy traveling, due to the technology, due to the advancements in the fields of science, what has happened is something, maybe a virus which could have been contained in a particular country, in a particular region, spread across the whole world in a matter of days, maybe weeks. And then what happened is, what we saw was the whole human race holding hands, of course, virtually, not really, but holding hands, trying to overcome this difficult
Yeah.
situation, being aware of the difficulties faced by everyone. And that is when, in fact, that was a great example to show that no matter how different we see ourselves from others, white, brown, black, rich, poor, developed, underdeveloped, civilized, uncivilized, undercivilized, no matter where we belong to, we all realize that all these differences don't matter. The virus doesn't see, oh, that's a weak female, oh, that's a strong muscular male, or this is a male dominated society, this is a female dominated society. It did not see anything. Everyone was sailing in the same boat. Everyone realized that we need to rise from our individual differences and stand against it together. Keeping the pandemic aside, actually it's not very pleasant to speak about it, but yes, it has taught us some things. But okay, let's talk about international mindedness. When we talk about the global issues, the word itself conveys the sustainable development goals. They are not the goals for a particular community, they are not for a particular country, but that is something which we have seen, which we now know they are prevalent all across the globe, right? So I want you all to reflect on it, maybe think about it for a minute, and tell me that how has international mindedness changed the way you look at certain things. You could associate it with the different subject groups that you are doing. You can associate it with your experiences. You can associate it with, I'm sure, you all have been part of Model United Nations and all, and how it has brought you to the understanding that, oh, we are not alone. The whole world is grappling and struggling with similar problems. And it all needs a cumulative effort, a cooperative effort to overcome those. Please share your views on this. Please share your experiences on this.
Ma'am, may I?
Please.
So, ma'am, in like one lesson, like not a lesson in school, from somewhere else, we were discussing if a vaccine, if America came up with a vaccine and it had extra vaccines, what if you were leaders, what would you propose, that to whom should America give the vaccine, India or China? Before learning about international mindedness, I would have suggested that it should come to India because I myself live in India. But now, after learning about international mindedness, I suggested that we could divide it in 50-50. Half of it could go to China and half of it could go to India, because then that
Because
would be unfair to China, and uh, then it could have been not helpful for India too, because if some people are traveling from China and they come to India, then China didn't have the vaccine, so the virus could still enter India.
yes. So somewhere we are thinking about, of course, international mindedness. Somewhere we are also thinking about the cumulative effect of it. So even if we have a vaccine, but China is our immediate neighbor, and if we are not thinking of sharing, then no matter what happens, how much vaccination we have, there's always a fear. But when you look at it with a little more of in depth, we know that we realize it is not countries, it is not boundaries, it is people. And at a certain level, all the people are same. Somewhere we all came from, we all share the DNA. Somewhere down back there from the ancient history and all. So there is a concept of Vasudevam Kutumbakam. That means the whole world is my family. And international mindedness teaches us that if someone has a different perspective, if someone has different priorities, if someone has a different outlook, that doesn't make that person wrong. I have to be I have to be open minded. I have to be sympathetic. I have to try to be in the shoes of that person to understand why and what. There is no one single right and there is no one single wrong. Right, that is what international mindedness is all about. And today, actually, I thought when we are talking about international mindedness, let's connect that with literature. Let's connect that with language. So everywhere where people, they face the same kinds of problems, they have the same kinds of celebrations, they have the same kinds of feelings. So if you prick someone with a pin in India or in Pakistan or in China or in US or in Europe, anywhere, they are all going to feel the pain. So what is important is not how you shout out with pain. It's not about it's "ui," it's "ouch," it's a curse word, anything. What is real is the pain. Similarly, what is real is our emotions, our feelings, our reactions to situations. If it's, if there's a natural disaster, if there's a calamity, it affects everyone the same. I cannot say, oh, I'm from a very developed nation, so it doesn't bother me. Of course, it bothers me, it thrashes me equally. So, international mindedness is being aware of what is going on in the world, being empathetic, being sympathetic. And one of the ways of doing that is when we read about it, when we are aware about it. Thanks to the social media, I know poor social media takes the brunt of all that people have to put across. Oh, this is the social media wasting so much of my time. This is social media making me vulnerable to things. This is social media where everything is fake and all. No, it's not always. Again, it's your perspective, it's your way of looking at things. And international mindedness teaches you that you are responsible for your decisions. It is you who are supposed to have an open mind. It is you who take your own decisions. It is you who decide what is important and what is not important. But what I really love about international mindedness is it is depicted, it is developed through all the values, through all the requirements that an IB curriculum requires you to do. In fact, the learner profile attributes that IB stresses so much on, they are all slowly molding us towards uh, international mindedness. The mission statement for IB says that we want to grow into lifelong learners. What are lifelong learners? Would someone like to tell me what do you exactly understand by lifelong learners? Does it mean that I should keep enrolling in different universities and keep gathering degrees if I want to be a lifelong learner?
No, ma'am. It means that you keep on learning, not only in a university but in your daily life also. You can learn so many things from different experiences, from reading new stories, and from incidents that keep happening in your life. You can take some message and you can implement it in your life.
Yes, so if I'm a lifelong learner, if I have had a bad experience, suppose I went out to help a stranger and I got mugged by that stranger, or I was kind of, trampled upon by that stranger. So, am I going to keep that lesson throughout my life that, oh, I should never help strangers? Or am I ready to experiment once again, to take a chance once again, to take a risk once again? That it's okay. People do come across, things happen, accidents happen. That doesn't mean I'm going to give up my hope. I'm going to give up my trust on humanity and stop helping anyone else. So, if I'm a lifelong learner, I'm ready to take a little bit of calculated risk to see whether my action is going to be rewarded, whether I'm going to be really helpful to someone, and whether it's going to give me a different experience. At the same time, if I have a particular way of doing something and I don't get results to that, that means somewhere I need to learn something new and try out that thing. So if I'm a lifelong learner, even today, if I learn, oh, this is not the right way to cut the bhindi, I have to learn it maybe from someone sitting in Uzbekistan, and I realize, oh, this person is cutting the bhindi in this way. This is what makes it better. So I'm a lifelong learner. Just kidding. But yes, a lifelong learner, having a different perspective towards things, keeping an open mind. And the most important thing is when we are talking about perspective. Do you think now when I say step into other person's shoes and see how he or she feels, is it that simple? Again, I want an example. Anyone, please. Please feel free to put forward your opinions. I want it to be um, an open communication channel where we are sharing ideas with each other, where we are sharing experiences.
Ma'am.
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, I would, when you said putting yourself in someone else's shoes, I feel like there exists a whole genre of films and books which have this, them, like, related to it. Like like they first show that somebody is committing a crime, and then they say the whole story behind why that person committed that crime. And if you see the emotions of the audience or the readers, um, there is a great difference, because throughout the book you truly get to understand the person's perspective, when and you truly get to see key what were they thinking, what were their emotions, and how their actions were in fact justified, and how, if we look at it superficially, it's such a wrong thing, but if you truly understand the backstory and the person's perspective, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely, Janvi. Thank you. I see Zaina has raised her hand.
Yes, ma'am. I want to share one experience that, like, one day, like Rajgopalan sir asked me, he gave me a topic in French, and he asked me to explain it to my classmates. So at that time, I was like, I was walking in the shoes of a teacher, and
Hmm.
I realized that we students, we never really appreciated the efforts a teacher makes while they are preparing a lesson for us. And I like realized how it feels when a teacher is asking a question and when we don't respond to them. That's an experience.
Yes, stepping into someone's shoes. Great. Anyone else? How difficult it is to step into others' shoes, to see how they are feeling. This is one thing which I always keep telling my children. This is generally a topic of discussion in most of my classes, that we are very comfortable labeling people, labeling even countries, that, this is a good country, this is a bad country, these people are good, those people are not good, this person is very nice, this person is not good. We have a hero, we have a villain, we have a protagonist, we have an antagonist. In fact, if you pick up pieces of literature, especially the classics, you will see that the authors never tried to defend or create a white character. Now, when I say a white character, I don't mean a character of color, but I mean a person whose personality, whose character was not blemished at all. In fact, literature is full of characters, the protagonists, the main characters, who have had their own share of mistakes, who had their own share of eccentricities, and who had their own shares of failure and realization. And I think that is what makes Shakespeare's plays, Shakespeare's writing still so evident and still such a hot favorite till date, because people have started realizing that the protagonists of Shakespeare's plays were not always the unblemished characters. And I think the Bard still gives me a very good example of an international minded author, because though he wrote in a particular country, those were the times where if you wrote a letter, I don't know how many months it took to travel across, or whether it was possible to send a letter across the oceans and all. But still, his writings, his ideas, his portrayal of good, bad, bringing something to justice has stayed. It has stood the test of time, and people still agree with it. There are adaptations to it. People, rewrite his plays. They play it in their local languages. They stage it with their editions of the flavor, the culture there. There are adaptations, but it still holds true. And I think that is a perfect example of international mindedness. They have all agreed that there's no human being who is totally bereft of feelings of anger, anxiety, sometimes jealousy, revenge, or having a possessiveness about things, about people, about materialistic goods. And international mindedness comes when we accept the flaws, but at the same time, we want to look at the other people also from the same lens that we have kept for ourselves. So it's okay if I feel jealous, but then it should always also be okay for someone else to feel jealous. If I'm proud of my country, it's but natural that others are proud of their own country. There's nothing wrong in it, is it? Any other example of international mindedness, or how do you think, can you inculcate international mindedness in yourself? You know, the best thing is, what I generally think about is, we all, in fact, a majority of population, they want to be expats. That is, they want to be the expatriates. They want to leave their country, they want to settle down somewhere else for better opportunities, they want to settle down for a better lifestyle, for a better standard of living. And there, they want to sing, they want to hold the flag of their country. Nothing wrong in that. But then, why do you object to others doing the same? Who are we to point out to others? If we don't have acceptance for others, how can we expect others to have acceptance for us? Who am I to judge people based on how they dress, how they carry themselves, how they treat each other, how they eat, what they eat, and what are their modes of entertainment? For me, if something is very loud, doesn't mean that the person doesn't enjoy it. Maybe the kind of music I listen to is drab for them. Perfect. If everyone ended up doing the same thing, if everyone ended up eating the same thing, if everyone ended up liking the same thing, don't you think the world will be colorless? Any thoughts? In fact, we have a few guests with us, and I would really like to invite them if they would like to put forward their ideas about international mindedness and why they think that plays all the more important role in today's world. On, say, 5th of January 2021.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Um, Actually, when you talked about international mindedness,
Mm-hmm.
I personally feel like when you talked about representing our country somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I feel like in order to have international mindedness, we need to have acceptance
Mm-hmm.
of other cultures, beliefs, and all of that, and we need to believe in unity in diversity. We need to know that even if the other person is different than us, even if their beliefs don't match ours, even if we don't hold the same beliefs or whatever, but still we need to have unity. We still, otherwise the world would crash and it would result in a lot of I mean controversies. And it has been happening, people going against each other because they are different, just because they don't want to embrace their difference. They just want to prove themselves right. And I feel like that's something wrong, because everybody is different and we must embrace this because it's such a beautiful thing.
Yes, Janvi, or for everyone who's listening, I would like to give a very simple example. You know, we have over the years, or from what we have learned, what we have seen, uh, we have seen two sides of a particular coin, and we think that everything has a good and bad. What if that everything is not two-dimensional but multi-dimensional? And why we cannot have a midway to it? Why is it that I either love something or hate something? What we need when we talk about international mindedness is we need to have acceptance. I'm not saying that I will be very happy about whatever, if there's some discrimination or there are some um, some specific rituals which I don't believe in, or which I find gross, or I find no sense in. But that doesn't mean it gives me a reason to hate or attack the people who are following it or who believe in it. The thing is, there could be a midway. There could be a sorting out. International mindedness is a view of the world in which people should see themselves connected to the global community. And I stress on the word connected and not divided. And they should assume a sense of responsibility to its members. It's an awareness of the interrelatedness of all nations and peoples and the recognition of complexities. So we do accept the different attitudes, we do accept the different behaviors, we do accept the different eccentricities of our own family members, right? Are all our family members same? Especially when we
No,
talk
ma'am.
about the extended family. So why cannot we look beyond and look at the extreme extended family and accept them for what they are? Ultimately, we are all sharing the planet and we are all here for some time. So what is the point in holding grudges against each other? I remember there's a beautiful poem by a poet, Mr. Zulfikar Ghose, I'm sorry. And he says, the poem is called Geography Lesson. The poem is an English poem wherein he says he's assumed that he is rising in a jet plane. So he says from a particular height where he is able to have a panoramic view of the city, he says, now I realize why the city is built as it is. I know there is a particular planning, though when I'm within a street or within an area, I think it's so haphazard. But when I look at it from a top view, I realize that there is some pattern there. There is some thinking which has gone into building of that city. When I rise a little more higher, that is when I'm able to see the boundaries. I'm able to see the different countries. And very frankly, I'm not able to make out why and what made people build these boundaries. From times immemorial, the only two things necessary for people to go and develop a particular place was availability of water and land, water to drink and land to grow food. And that is what attracted people. That is what made them go and settle down somewhere. So maybe one of my brothers went and settled down in the Nile river valley. Someone went and settled down in the Chenab river valley. And over these many years, what I've done is I have kind of put them away from me, not accepting that somewhere we are the same. Maybe it was the temperatures there that made them dress in a particular way. Maybe it was the availability of resources there which made them adapt to a specific kind of a diet. Maybe it was the circumstances at that time that gave rise to their certain customs, certain rituals. And finally, in the third stanza, the poet says, at the height of 10,000 feet, I cannot make out that why people have built boundaries, why they are ready to kill each other, when we know you are not going to be here forever. When you know that we are a part of a greater landmass, we all have water bodies around us, and most of it is salt water, which we cannot, which is not good for us for consuming or anything. So why? Why are we fighting on something which is going to stay forever and we are not going to be there? So I loved the concept, how slowly he takes us from local to global to as parts or as the inhabitants of Earth. So I found international mindedness in the thought of that poet. Anything else that any one of you would like to share? Please do that. Any questions? Any doubts? If you don't agree with
No, ma'am.
something, perfectly all
Uh,
right. We can always talk about it.
I actually had a question.
Yes, please.
Um, like as we know that there is like we do have the freedom of speech in our country and in most of the countries of the world. um so till what extent can we actually voice our opinion against something without necessarily hurting the sentiments of the people we are addressing? Like, I don't know, like how do we go against someone without actually making it look like um without actually making it look like we are um we are not in favor of them, just trying to say that we are against this.
Okay, so let me understand. You want to give your opinion against someone's behavior or attitude or belief, but you don't want to sound abusive or oppressive.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is, why are we against it? Is it because of some personal experience? Is it because of I'm thinking of the action as wrong for humanity? Or is it because, as I said, is it personal or global? My concern. Second thing
It
is,
has to be like, it can be global. Like, I mean global. What if I think something somebody is doing might be a threat to the people around them or humanity in general, but
right.
they don't
So
believe it?
they don't think it is. Now, intentionally, no one would want to do something until and unless they see either some personal gain or some monetary gain or something that is giving them that satisfaction of doing. Very frankly, every human being is very lazy. So they won't do anything until and unless it benefits them in some way or the other. Right. So when we talked about putting ourselves in the shoes of others or trying to look at their perspective, maybe then when we know their perspective, when we say, when we put it across, when we put it out, that I understand, I know what it is. But is there a better way of doing it? Is there another way of achieving it without harming or without taking advantage of someone else? Maybe at a cost which is not at the cost of the environment. So, if we work on our words, if we work on what we have been thinking about when we say international mindedness, there has to be a reason why those things are being done. Maybe it has been ingrained for so long that people stop realizing that that is not the right thing to do. So, slowly and steadily, we need to put across our ideas, but of course, in a way that does not does not flip out the other person. They don't get immediately repulsive or they are kind of they take it as a formidable attack on their decisions and choices. With the correct choice of words and the right approach, I'm sure it could be put across.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much.
If you are not convinced, we can take an example and speak about it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm convinced. Yeah,
See,
I feel like I need to
it
practice and
starts
integrate
it
it.
starts from the base what we were discussing earlier, putting yourself into the shoes of that person and looking at that perspective. That is what Janvi you said when maybe you're watching a movie or a serial and you see someone doing something very wrong, maybe killing another person, and you feel, oh, this is not right, or someone going into a killing spree. But then when you look at there's a flashback and then you see that, oh, this was an innocent person and this was the wrong done and that was the grave um, injustice done to this person and all, and there was no one to help. So then the person took matters in his or her hands, and that is when they are the meting out justice to everyone. So that time you're convinced with those actions, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Totally.
something similar to that. I'm not saying that I'm kind of agreeing to those actions. I'm just saying if you look at the reason, many a times there is a reason for the way people or countries behave, though not always justified.
Thank you, ma'am.
Zaina, you have raised your hand.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I wanted to make a point regarding
Please.
open-mindedness.
Hmm.
Uh, like previously, Janvi Didi had talked about people accepting each other's cultures and
Hmm.
embracing them. So I think that as time is developing, people have accepted each other's cultures, but in a few cultures and a few people, there's still a sense of like they think that they are superior to others. Like they have accepted that okay, a belief like this exists, a few people believe this, but still our belief is right, we are superior than them. So that is one thing that must change, I feel.
Of course. See, I'm not saying we cannot change the world or the world doesn't need to change. What I'm saying is there's a way to bring about the change. All this has happened after years and years and generations of hammering in the minds. Maybe a child who's born in the family without any inhibitions, without any bias, without any prejudice, if he or she, that child, grows up in an environment believing what the child sees, you cannot always blame the child. The thing is because the child had never had any other perspective to look at. So that is where education plays a role. That is where experiences play a role. That is where looking beyond what is very evident plays a role. And that takes time. That is what we are all trying to do now. You are the future of the world. So if you grow up with a mindset that no, we are all one, we may have differences, but still we are all working in our own way to make the world a better place. So I'm sure it's going to pay off. That is what we are discussing about. That is why we are stressing on why it is important to look beyond the evident. Something which seems to be the whole world, but it is not the whole world. And
Yes,
one of the
ma'am.
best
Thank you.
examples I find is the story of the Happy Prince. So, symbolically, metaphorically, they say the Happy Prince was very happy because he was in his palace, which had those huge walls. He never saw the suffering of the people outside, and he was always very happy. After he died, there was a golden statue of the prince, but then that golden statue was put at such a high pedestal that the prince was able to see all the misery around him, and that is when the statue realizes that what I lived for was not the whole world. Though it was too late for the prince to realize, but then it shows us that it was of no fault of the prince, that he never knew what lay beyond the high walls of his palace. That is what international mindedness and the technology is doing. It's kind of zooming the camera into the houses, into the boundaries, and trying to give us a perspective of what it feels like to be the other person who's suffering. Okay?
Yes.
I
Thank
think,
you, ma'am.
yes, thank you so much for joining in this meeting. And I really loved discussing things with you all. You were a great audience, listening very patiently, bearing with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am. Bye,
Thank
ma'am.
Thank you,
you. Bye
ma'am.
bye. Thank you, Parth. Thank you, Mrs. Anita. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Mr. Piyush. Bye.